What's up guys, Matt here. Just want to say thanks for clicking on the video. Wanted to throw a quick little run clip of this at the beginning so you could see this thing out in the wild, in the sunlight. It's freaking beautiful. I'm loving it. And you guys let me know what you think. Just wanted to give you a quick little look at it before we get into the install and how this thing started out. If you don't think that's beautiful, like, I'm sorry, but you've got issues. No, nothing is for everybody. This is maybe not for you, but if it is, stick around and we're going to talk a little bit about this thing and the build. What's up guys, Matt here coming at you with a brand new Capra 18 video. This thing is something I really like, but nobody else around here bought one of these. I just don't feel like they've been as popular as Axial kind of thought they were going to be. I know nobody else that owns one around here at all. And so when I go out, I enjoy running this. I love it with this metal chassis on it because it's, you know, more performance based. I've been wanting to make me a little bit lower battery mount for it, but it's really running pretty good. And I enjoy it, but nobody else runs them. You know, we go to run and everybody shows up with a 10 scale, or they bring the 24s now because they know I'm going to bring a ton of 24s. And then I'm just kind of to myself if I go to run this. So it doesn't get much use, but it's something I do really like. And now Furitek, you know, they're just giving us more and more options for these things. Now this cage looks killer. The welds on these, people will nitpick them, but I think it's pretty good for this small scale. And, you know, it's definitely something I can live with, but I'm not a welder. I don't really care what the welds look like, to be 100% honest with you. And so for me, I like it. Now, this color of these panels is probably the ugliest thing I've ever seen. So I am definitely going to do something about that. But you can see this really gives this just a mean, aggressive look, but it's going to keep your stock kind of appearance just with a more scale, real look than this plastic cage, right? So we're going to be able to put our drivers in here, the fuel cell, use the light bar, everything, as far as I know, is going to transfer over. And this it's going to look cool. First off, I'm going to get rid of these. But I think this does weigh right around the same as the stock cage, and maybe just a hair more once you move your drivers and stuff over. So you're not gaining anything as far as weight goes, but the looks are unbelievable. So definitely going to look really good. Excited to get this built. Kind of hate to take this apart, but I also am not buying another one because like nobody runs them around here. So I thought about buying another one just to give somebody to run around here because I'll just take it with me and be like, hey, let's run these, you know. But it's not worth the investment to buy another one. So I'm just going to transfer this over to this and we'll see how this thing turns out. So first off, we're going to get rid of these panels. All right, so now that that's taken care of, we can get down to the business on this thing. So thrilled with how this turned out. I gotta say, like, you guys know, if you watched my videos on this thing, I wasn't super thrilled about the Capra cage. I've had the Capra for many, many years, like when it first came out, the 10 scale. I've got a little burnout on this cage because there was probably like 15 Capras in this town at one time. Everybody had the Capra. And so for me, you know, I've put hard bodies and stuff on my 10 scale Capras, everything. So as soon as this came out, like, I was pretty happy to get rid of this cage. I tried the killer chassis, a great chassis for sure, and then ended up going with this Furitek metal chassis. And I really like this. It's a good performer. It's not for everybody, I feel like, but I actually like the looks of it once it was on there. But I think I'm actually in love now. And you know, this has brought the Capra cage back to life for me. It takes the Capra cage, but makes it look cool, in my opinion. You know, this is so much better than this plastic pile right here, right? So we can ditch this. Basically, we didn't really gain a lot. As far as weight and stuff goes, we're sitting basically where we were to start with. We do have a couple more shock mount options. You can see the stock one has 2 front and rear. This has 4 front and rear, so we get a couple more mounting options there. The rock lights don't sit kind of like tucked in as much on here, so I'm not real sure if I'm going to leave those. I don't think they look bad, but I'm not real sure how long they'll last either. I may knock those right off. So that was one thing. My main issue with this really was these panels, and I just didn't like that color. I didn't like that we kind of lost this section here, our skids, our boat side sliders. So you can see I just kind of made my own little panels, and I think it works. It's not the most beautiful thing, but if you see a real buggy like this, a lot of times they're pretty rough. You know, they're beat up. It's some homemade stuff. Some dudes welded up in a garage somewhere. And so I think it fits really well, and I love how it looks. And I mean, that's really all that matters. So I just couldn't get behind these colors. And so I had some of this stuff around that I have used for other projects, this carbon fiber stuff. I'll put a link in the description. This came from Amazon. This came from Amain. It's basically just some diamond plate that I cut up. So I will definitely link all of that in the description. It just takes a little work, you know. I took this and shaped it up. I cut me a section just like that and just left it long and made it work. So I'm pretty thrilled with how it turned out. Yeah, this is not going to slide as good as like the plastic probably, both sides here, but it looks cleaner. You don't have that gap. As you can see here in this picture, when I had these panels on, we had that gap where you could just kind of see in there, and it just didn't look great. So wasn't real thrilled with that. The main thing with this, I will say, putting it all together, the biggest thing that's like a pain is all of these little screws. You have to put like a nut on the back side of them, and that can be kind of a pain trying to get something in there. I keep around just a set of these kind of tweezers to put those little nuts on and put them on the back side of these screws and stuff. So that's what I did for those. You could also just double up the nuts on the back, or the FCX24 wheel nuts actually fit a lot of these screws pretty well. So you can put those on there, and they have the lock ring in them. A lot of times on the 24 scale, when I'm doing that, I will use just a little bit of this tire glue. I'll put it just on the end of an old Allen wrench tool or something and just dab it on there over the end of the threads, and it'll hold them on there really well. I mean, you can do Loctite on them, whatever, but sometimes it's hard to fight Loctite when you're trying to, you can barely get in there to start with. So I end up with Loctite just all over me. So usually what I'll do once they're in there and on well, like you can see these on the roof, I think here, I'll just dab a little bit of this glue on here and just kind of coat it over that, and that keeps it secure. But pretty pleased with how this thing turned out. We're going to go run it a little bit on the outdoor course here. Probably not going to be a lot of challenging lines for it, but I will definitely try to get this thing out this week to a really good spot and update you guys on it. Just wanted to show you this thing. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So this cage also lets you keep all of your lights and everything. So the LED light bar mounts straight up. I kind of just ran my wire down here. I may end up kind of putting just a little dab of glue or something in there to hold that behind this bar so it doesn't show as much, but not too bad there. There's not really any cable management in it like the stock cage has, but everything is fine. You can see the stock battery, it should fit in this tray. I've got this little blue battery I run a lot of times just stuffed in there right now. And my wires up front to the headlights and rock lights, kind of a little bit of everywhere, but it all fit. And the only thing I really kind of had an issue with is my front, the grill here. I don't know if my cage is just a little more narrow than the stock setup or what, but This didn't quite want to fit in there right, and it's got a little bit of a bow to it where it sit more flat against the stock cage. So, but you know, I can live with that. This thing in the looks department, it's got it. You know, I don't look for a ton of improvement on performance just because we stayed around the same weight and everything. We did gain the shock mounting points, like I said, but other than that, it's basically the stock cage just with way better looks. So let's go run this thing and see how it does. So I took this outside on the little course I've been working on. Nothing too technical or tough for this thing yet out here, but hopefully in the future as I expand this, I will just have more and more and be able to test larger trucks like this as well. And it just saves me from having to drive 20 minutes one way, you know, run and then 20 minutes back, whatever. And I can get a lot more done in a shorter time frame. You know, time's pretty limited with 2 kids running and all of that work and stuff. So you can see these jagged rocks I've just piled up here that are for future builds. I just wanted to see if this thing could kind of make it through these, and it did pretty well. With this battery, I think I'm going to have to change it out and try a different battery. I'm getting some really bad stalling. The ESC just like completely cuts out on me if I'm in a bad bind. I'm hoping it's just the battery because I haven't really experienced this any other time. So I'll have to update on that if something's going on with my ESC in here or what. But at times it would just completely cut out. But as far as the chassis goes, the cage, it's crazy how I can not really like the Capra cage, but love this just because it looks so much better to me. It just looks more realistic. You know, I think that was my issue with the Capra cage. After you've looked at it for a while, especially, it's just kind of plastic, toyish looking, and this just looks amazing out on the rocks. And you can see I've got all of my lights hooked up. I don't have those on a switch. I may eventually put those on a switch where I can turn them off and on, but right now they're just plugged straight in. They're on all the time. Trying to make a little turn here. This is a pretty tight turn, pretty tough side hill for this thing, just kind of limited space, but just playing around, trying to see what it could do. I had considered putting 4-wheel steer on this thing when I first bought it. I had originally ordered an extra front axle to put on the rear, and then I decided to wait, and I hadn't been driving this a lot, so I haven't went with the 4-wheel steer, but if I start spending more time with it, that's something I may do. And I could definitely see me spending some more time with this out here on this course, you know, especially once I expand it, obviously. Not a ton right here right now, but as this gets bigger, this is a truck that still fits something like this, and you can have fun with it. You know, I had a pretty good time crawling on just this little bit, even though this thing's oversized for the lines that I had originally planned on this course. You can still just do what you want, and this thing pretty much conquered everything with no problems. These tires doing pretty well. I was a big fan of these in the 2.2s way back when I first started crawling on an old Red Cat RS10. And I found them in these 1.5s, and they're doing really well. These are just some hot body Rovers with just the stock foam that came with them in there. I picked up some Proline dual stage foams, but I didn't really like how they fit the tires, so I'm just running the stock foams. And, you know, I'm losing a little bit of side hill with those folding at times, but this is not a real super heavy rig, and it seems to do okay like it is. I wouldn't mind stretching this thing just a little bit. I picked up some of the Deluxe Fab like drive shaft adapters because I was going to try to adapt and just put like a 10th scale drive shaft on here and make my own links and stuff for the rear at least. So that's something I may do eventually. And I wouldn't mind doing the 4-wheel steer on here at some point if I continue to drive this more. But hopefully as I expand this course, you know, I can have a tougher section maybe for these things, and maybe that'll get some people in the area interested, because my goal in the end with this course is to have a setup where I can invite, you know, some people over, and we can just have some little fun comps and fun runs, and give me a really good place to test mods and stuff for you guys. So as far as this chassis goes, I feel like if you're getting this one, you're really getting it for the looks, because it just looks sick. And, you know, maybe we're not gaining a ton in performance, but it's totally like revamps the look of this thing, in my opinion. You know, I do not like just the stock Capra cage. It just looks cheap, toyish to me. And this is a direct copy of it, basically, but being the titanium metal look, it just looks real. It looks beefy. It looks tough, you know, and I can't believe how good it turned out. So you guys let me know what you think about this one. Had to dial the volume way down. It has been like crazy windy here lately, and no matter what I do, every time I'm shooting video, it's just like a freaking wind tunnel outside. So I dialed back the volume on the original stuff. I like to let you guys hear the trucks kind of run and everything, but instead you get to listen to me blab on. But you guys let me know what you think about this. I really appreciate everybody watching. Tons and tons of stuff coming up. I just can't even get to everything, but working my way through the list, and got a lot coming up. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. I appreciate everybody. Peace.